Welcome to this session of the Psychic and Intuitive Ability Summit. I'm Joy Taylor, your host. My guest for this session is Suzanne Giesemann. The topic is you are already psychic, intuitive, and capable of connecting. Suzanne Giesemann is a former U.S. Navy commander who is now an author and teacher of The Awakened Way. I love that title. Her verified connection with those in the non-physical realms allows her to convey messages of hope, of healing, and love. And those messages, they just go straight to the heart and they illuminate the light of self-awareness within. Suzanne is a beautiful human being, and it is my honor and pleasure to be here today with her. Suzanne, welcome to the summit.
Thank you, Joy. Hi, everybody. Always great to be here.
Yeah, and you've been here with the shift for quite a few different opportunities, always bringing hope, love, clean, clear messages that really inspire people. I love the topic. I love your title. And I would love to just start with maybe demystifying some terms. So I've heard you say that a psychic connection is not a mediumship connection. So what's the difference?
All right. Very important to understand that both connections use the same method of connecting, which is simply shifting to your unlimited self, your more spacious self than the limited human mindset. So once you make that shift, anything is possible. So it's really a matter of what channel you choose to tune into. So the psychic channel is the normal frequency that we're always operating in our human waking consciousness. So I would be tuning into your energy, Joy, or anybody's energy who's right now watching this. But a mediumship tuning in is a different channel. It's more refined. It's a bit higher because we're not dealing with the dense energy that goes with the physical body. So it's just a different field that we're tapping into, even though they're all intermingled, it's intertwined. So it's just a matter of where you put your focus, what your intention is, which you tune into. People who have passed from the body or people still in the body. That's the difference.
And in your work, you do both. You work with people, obviously you do quite a bit, talking to people out of the body, but also intuitive readings, supporting people in their lives.
Yes, it depends on what their intention is when they come to me for a sitting. I always ask them, what's your intention? Because my principal motivation is connect people with their loved ones who have passed as a medium. But some people know their loved ones are here. They really don't want to talk to them, which always surprises me because I would take any opportunity at all to do that. So if they say, well, I want to know about me and I want to know about what's going on in my life and how to handle issues, I just right away say, psychic. So we'll just see what's in their field.
I love how you're putting that. And I noticed you said when you have a sitting with someone, so you don't use the word reading. And I think there's a reason for that.
Well, I do use the word reading because that's what most people recognize and understand. But I deliberately said sitting this time because the distinction is huge. It's what kept me from discovering my psychic abilities when I first started down the path of mediumship. I was having really good connections with people's loved ones who had passed. But my teachers said, now do a psychic reading. And I would sit down with somebody right in front of me with specific things about them we were tasked to discern. And I wasn't able to do it. I said, what is the problem here? And it was my guides across the veil that showed me. By using the word reading, I thought I had to read their field as if they were separate from me. And Joy, this is the key right here that a lot of people miss. When you shift to the spacious self, otherwise known as the soul, all souls are just always intertwined. We are at the human level as well. But in this spacious state, we merge so much more easily with other fields. So instead of picturing it as reading the other person who is separate from you, like you would read a book, we simply merge energy fields, and all we have to do is notice what is now arising in our awareness. So it's not reading at all. It's just noticing, becoming aware what is different from my normal field of awareness now that I've set the intention to know and discern certain things about this person I'm with? It's a completely different mindset. But once you learn to make that shift, their stuff just stands right out. And that's how you know you're not making it up as well.
And for someone who might not be having a sitting, but they want to access their own stuff, their own ability to get bigger messages for themselves, what do you recommend? What are the keys?
Well, it's the same thing. You set aside your focus on the limited human self. You shift your focus with intention and belief that it's possible to access your higher self. I literally use the word shift. And I trust that now I have, through intention, set the Suzanne story aside, even though I want to discern things about the Suzanne story. Now, from this higher perspective, I know that I can access any information needed for my greatest and highest good. And so I just put that out to the universe and see what bubbles up.
And do you see?
Oh, it's the whole mixture of clairvoyance is seeing and clairaudience is hearing. The best is claircognizance. The best is not the best word because people might think it's better than, but in a way it is. That pure knowing that claircognizance represents is just the ultimate. But when that is combined with visuals and thoughts, feelings, then you have a real rich experience.
So intuition is innate. It's built in for all of us as human beings. And that's something we're talking a lot about in this summit. Why is it so unfailing? Why is it so reliable? And how can people know what is reliable?
It is unfailing because it is your deepest essence, truth with a capital T. Intuition arises from the very source that we all share. We recognize truth when we experience it. So I just finished teaching a class for the Shift Network and taught this lesson with an actual flower. I don't have a live rose with me right now, but I can show you this. Okay. What is this? We know this is a crystal, an amethyst. We know it. But how do you know it? You know it because somebody at some point showed you one and said that purple crystal-y thing, that's called an amethyst. But is this beautiful? The answer is yes. How do you know that? Nobody can teach you that this is beautiful. This comes from within because beauty arises from the very source we all share. So intuition comes from that same source, and it's always based on goodness, beauty, and love.
So beautiful. And that clear cognizance and that just knowing is such a powerful feeling. I think most everyone has had that moment of knowing. So let's talk about developing psychic skills, intuitive skills, and how people can develop them. And why would they want to?
Why would you want to? Greater ease, peace, joy, love. Why do those arise from psychic skills? Because you are accessing information, insights, tools for getting through our human lives with all their drama, with help, with higher guidance, with information about what's going to make your life easier, how to make higher, better choices, to understand other people's motives, to know when you can trust what's before you. The reasons are endless why you would want to do that. So how do you develop that? Well, I don't know if everybody watching knows my background. I don't want to assume that. I spent 20 years in the Navy. I retired as a commander in the Navy. At the very top of my career, I was the aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I didn't realize how intuitive I was. If he held out his hand, I needed to know what he wanted and put it in his hand. That's one of the things an aide has to do, is be one step ahead of the general all the time. And so I was using my intuitive abilities, but I just thought it was being one step ahead. But it was when my stepdaughter, Susan, a sergeant in the Marines, was struck and killed by lightning after I retired that I truly learned what intuition is, because I just somehow knew from the soul level that Susan's soul, her spirit, could not have died with her body, even though I had no experience, no background in this, had never seen a spirit, had no idea I would be a psychic medium someday. I just knew she still existed in some form and I could learn to connect with her. So I began meditating daily the very week she died, back in 2006, when meditation was not as commonplace as it is now. I had no instruction. I didn't know what to do. So I just sat quietly every day saying, Susan, let me know you're here. Susan, show yourself to me. Now, see, I had no expectations. I didn't know what to expect. I had no assumptions other than that I know she exists. And so I wasn't expecting bells and whistles. I was hoping Susan would appear before me. That was my sole goal on both terms, soul. And so I just sat and I waited. And what I didn't realize is that was the perfect training ground, because I wasn't expecting anything other than that one thing. But what I got was this experience of how spacious we all are. What I got was what happens when you just sit with one focus and block out everything else. You block out the external world, the objective visuals in front of you with no sounds except some nice music, and sitting quietly, which we don't do too often these days. Day after day, I suddenly started knowing things about other people, about situations. My intuition was coming back online. My psychic abilities actually opened up before I discovered I was a medium. It was only when I was put to the test in a classroom situation, read this person, that I failed because I was ignoring what naturally arises when we sit quietly. And a quick example, Joy, is that my father had a stroke during this time, and we met his doctor in the hospital. We'd never seen him before. He was a very dark-skinned Black man. And my brother looked at me and said, "Oh, I wonder where he's from." And I turned to my brother without even thinking, because it came from here, and I said, "Ghana." And we both looked at each other like, where'd that come from? And later I had the opportunity to ask the doctor, "Excuse me, sir, where are you from?" And he smiled and he said, "I'm from Ghana." And it was shocking to me back then, because I hadn't trained for this, but that's clearly a psychic thing to pick up from somebody's field where they're from. And those kind of things kept happening more and more as a direct consequence of quieting the mind regularly and focusing on one thing to the exclusion of all else. And then up comes exactly what you need.
I so relate and I so appreciate it. And when you said, you just knew, right? You knew he was from Ghana, or it came out of your voice. What a celebration. And I just really encourage for everyone who is growing and practicing in their ability to celebrate those moments when we get it, when we actually, and remember what it feels like. Could you put actually, that's kind of an interesting question. Could you put a feeling sense to what it feels like when it's a clear connection, when it's accurate?
Absolutely. There's a flow to it. It just comes naturally. There's zero trying. It is just here, present. It's in awareness. There's no effort, and it has a lift to it. So it really does have a different energy. Very, very subtle. People think it's going to hit you over the head, and sometimes psychic hits do, but other times that knowing is just there. So when you take note of these things, you might even write it down, so you get a big list of them, and you go back over that list, you start to really know what that experience is like, so that it just becomes part of your very being.
This is really important. I have a little book myself where I started it in my 20s, but I was a student of life. And I really wanted to live the best life possible and be in touch with the spirit realms to make great decisions and enjoy. So every time there was a miracle or an insight, I would take note. And the way you explained it, the peacefulness, the just clarity of that, the flow, the upliftment, beautiful descriptions and important.
Because our human side gets in the way. We start to doubt. We think we were making it up. But when you, first of all, the act of writing it down cements it in your awareness, but then you have something to go back to, and it just starts to build up to what I call the preponderance of the evidence, and you can't deny it anymore.
Yeah. I like what you said about it's not effortful. You don't try. It's more of an allowing. And you also have been talking about the power of meditation. So and you've been talking about intention. So we're starting to put the pieces together. So for someone who's nervous and they have something, they have to make a choice quickly, but they're in fear, not yet in that meditative state. Do you have any practices that support people in calming themselves so that they can get the messages?
Absolutely. My Sip of the Divine, it's one of my most popular videos on YouTube that stands for Sit in Peace. The video is actually called No More Meditation Excuses because it's only a 3-minute practice and it always starts with just a nice, slow, relaxing breath. So you get to know what peace feels like. So few people stop once during a day to just take a relaxing breath or just go, go, go. So if you can carve out 3 minutes a day, and there's no excuse for not doing this. That's why it's like the Sip of the Divine. If you can stop and have a coffee for a few minutes, you can create time for yourself to sit in peace. Nice deep breath, sit quietly and ask one question. What is it I need to know right now? But you're asking it of higher consciousness. Doesn't matter where the answer comes from, as long as it's in your highest and greatest good. You sit without fear because this is like a genie in the bottle. Oh boy, I'm about to find out what I need to know. And through the daily practice of 3 minutes a day, one relaxing breath, a clear intention, you start to get answers. And you experience that peace and you realize there's nothing to fear here. This is easy. I'm getting guidance. Acting on it will show you that this is coming from a place of goodness, right? The soul.
Wonderful. All right, I've got a new topic to bring into the mix here, Suzanne, and it's this notion of the future. And many people do want their own guidance or go to psychics to get some kind of a fortune telling experience, what's going to happen in the future. So when and are predictions actually reliable?
I have to ask my guides that question. They're giving me this sign. You really can't say that accurately because there are so many pieces that come into the mix, and they're called you and me and every other human. We're all using our free will to make choices, but there are certain milestones that each soul came here to experience. I was about to say achieve, and they changed me, say experience, because these aren't success or fail. We come here for experiences. And so you'll be guided and people will be guided to make choices. So those certain experiences, you get the check and the block, but other smaller things can easily go awry. Like it's as if your life is a main highway, and through your choices, you can get off at different on and off ramps for little side trips, and your guides will get you back on the highway to the best of their ability. And so because we are also souls with the bigger picture, those who use their soul to tune in, psychic means of the soul, we can see what's coming down the highway. For a certain distance, things are pretty well set because you can see all the players that are entangled with that experience. But beyond that, it's much more nebulous. So it's a moving target, the future. And so what's reliable? The present moment.
Couldn't say it better. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
So in terms of reliability, maybe we can speak to a little bit about knowing when you are in the presence of a intuitive or psychic that is reliable. Knowing when the information coming feels reliable. What are your thoughts?
Oh, this is so funny because my assistant Lynette and I went on a trip where I was teaching a workshop, and she said, "Hey, have you ever been to one of these psychics in a storefront?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Let me gift you a reading." I said, "No." And she said, "No, it's my gift." And then I realized that would make her feel good to gift me something. I said, "Okay, we'll take a 20-minute reading." And the reader just put out some cards, looked at it, read them face value after asking my name, my birthday, several other things about me. Then she asked me, what do you want to know? And inside I laughed and I thought, well, if you're a good psychic, you should know. And so, but I didn't say that. And she just read all the cards at face value, and it was not helpful. It was nothing that I didn't already know. And what I noticed, Joy, which was so perfect, because I was teaching a class the next day and I got to use this as an example of why it wasn't a good reading, is there was no shift in her consciousness. She was talking to me human to human. I can feel when somebody's coming from the soul versus the story of you, state your name. And so she just read the cards instead of just, there's that little shift. Let me feel, let me see what's in the field. It's an energetic shift, and she didn't do it. And I have to tell you that Lynette decided to have a reading at the same time. And when we came out, we compared notes. And she said, well, parts of mine were good and parts weren't so good. But she said she was really off on one part. And I said, what's that? She said, she told me, you're not very happy in your job and you're so unappreciated at work. We had to laugh because nobody could be more appreciated than my team. So you just know as a client of a reading when the psychic is on target. And I've had people come out just destroyed from psychic readings with others. Oh, the psychic said this and that's going to happen to me. And I said, and you're believing that? Where is that coming from? Fear is from the human side. You can trust something in your heart. If you feel it in your heart, that just can't be right. Then it's not.
This distinction you're making between the human side and the spirit side is so key.
It's huge, and it's what most people miss. You're not only human. I teach the awakened way, Joy. It's my whole path to share with people certain principles about who we really are. And the first principle is you are not only human. And we get stuck in that mindset and we miss out on our more spacious experiences.
Yeah. And so becoming more familiar with and identifying self more as spirit, as soul in human form, to bring a texture to that. As you're speaking, I can feel you, and I just feel how you navigate these worlds and have honed the ability to be able to say, oh, that's a human perception. Oh, that's more of a spiritual perception.
That's right. It's a dance. It's a flow. Whereas I know, because I spent 20 years literally marching in lockstep in the military. And that was the only way to be. And you had to be like everybody else. And there was very little flow. We were taught to think for ourselves, but there's always also that, do things in order and what you're told when you're given orders. So now it's just in the moment, present awareness and flow. It's so beautiful to live this way.
Yeah, what a wonderful way to live. What a wonderful way to teach. Yeah, to experience life. You've mentioned the word guides a couple times. My guides are telling me. And so who are your guides?
Most of us have some family members who are helping us, but all of us have at least one guide who's been with us from the day we were born and before, and afterwards they'll be there to greet us. They know us so well. Most people say, but how come I don't know I have guides? Well, can you feel your hair on your head right now? They're that close that you just don't realize they're always in your energy field. You don't notice them until the wind blows, right? And then you feel your hair. That's just a metaphor. But the guides are higher beings who have that higher perspective all the time. They can look down on the map that you're traveling here and give you advice. We just have to remember to shift our focus and ask them for help. They're putting guidance in your mind all the time. We often think our thoughts are our own, but so many of them bubble up from our guides. They just feel like our own because we're so used to it. Go do this now. Well, I think I'll go do this now. And it turns out to be a magical moment. We don't realize it was a setup.
Yeah, so much of these coincidences are completely arranged by the cooperative components of all involved. There's so much I want to talk to you about. And I do want to just go back to this whole mediumship piece and being able to talk with people who have passed. And specifically, I'm curious about people right now in human body that maybe are facing death or, it's coming soon. Is there anything that they can do now in human form to begin to practice having communication with the ones they love that will be left on earth?
I love this question, Joy, because there's nothing to practice at all. Once you shed the body, it's just pure, clear awareness. Oh my goodness, here's my family in human form. I can see them. I can drop in on them anytime. I'm talking to them. And so nothing to practice at all. What you can do, however, is learn everything you can about the afterlife to open up to that and not be afraid. Clear out any regrets, any lower vibrations that you don't want to take with you. Just shed it here and now. My mediumship guide was a dear friend of mine, Brenda. She's still a dear friend of mine and helping me across the veil. She got rid of all the gunk in her energy field. Just before she left, her final healing was emotional. And she just began talking immediately across the veil. Most importantly for everybody is say your thank yous and your regrets now. Apologies, give forgiveness, all those things, so you don't have to track down a medium from the other side to say it if your loved ones are not feeling your presence clearly.
That's so profound. I mean, that's a big takeaway for everyone. Not even,
Sure.
on the deathbed, but to speak the regrets, have the communication, share the love, clear our energy fields so that we can make that transition of shedding the body. But what you're talking about today too is transitioning into more awareness of spirit form while in the body.
That's it. I don't think that I'm going to feel that much difference in awareness when I get across the veil, except the clarity of perception, because I'm constantly talking to my guides anyway. They just say it'll be just like in, what is that called? Dolby surround sound.
How has your life improved since you just became more living this intuitive way? And
oh my gosh, I still have ups and downs, but I immediately become aware that I love being centered more, and I temper how high I go so that I don't go proportionally as low. So peace is just my daily companion, and I just see the soul in everyone, Joy. So I love everyone, and it's just the most beautiful way to live. I didn't think that was possible couple decades ago, but to live without judging others, to learn moment by moment how to set aside the human nature and not judge myself anymore. I'm still a work in progress, but I'm aware of the vast difference between the soul and the ego. So it's the ego stuff stands out, and I just say, thank you for that. Isn't that interesting? You go sit in the corner.
that pretty much is the awakened way, isn't it?
It is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of peace, do you have a favorite mindfulness practice or peace practice that you use?
Oh, that absolutely is the sip of the divine.
The sip.
It's my go-to practice. I meditate daily for longer than 3 minutes, but I just, I use a special set of meditation speakers that last for 3 minutes. They put these beautiful tones out, and I just took a pair of them downstairs. So I'll do this in the evenings as well, because my meditation is in the morning. But I noticed that in the evening, I start to get little cravings for sugar, and I just feel really tired. And it's because I'm still working at night and preparing for new classes or whatever, and I haven't stopped to breathe. So now I'm doing the sip of the divine in the evening, and the cravings disappear. That may be the biggest takeaway from the whole talk we're having here. But suddenly I'm peaceful again, and we just get on with the rest of the evening.
There is nothing more satisfying than connection with spirit. Yeah. And breath is a doorway to it, isn't it?
Yes, and it's so simple. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Suzanne, what's upcoming in your life? You do tons of working with others, with training, and you have events. What's exciting for you that's upcoming?
Oh, I think my most exciting is for my first ever leading a cruise. I'm a workshop 7 days, 8 nights at sea, or 8 nights, 7 days. I'm not sure. We're going to Alaska, and you're invited. Leaving out of Seattle August 12th. And we're doing the whole Awakened Way workshop in with all the beautiful scenery and the Holland America cruise. I have a workshop at the Omega Institute on the East Coast of the U.S. I have a personal mediumship workshop on the West Coast in Reno, Nevada. I'm going to London in the fall to teach my work. And so there's always something. But for those who can't meet me in person, monthly connection webinars with the latest and greatest from my spirit guides and the latest evidence from the greater reality. And my online app is being so well received by people. It's called Awakened Way app. Daily messages from spirit to inspire you. We're up to 16,000 downloads in 3 months. So people seem to be enjoying it. Absolutely free.
What a beautiful gift. And the Awakened Way, is there anything you want to say about what is the Awakened Way?
Right. It's just a way of living that acknowledges you are not only human, you're part of one big web connecting all that is, no distinction between physical and non-physical. And the creative healing force of the universe is love, which is your very essence. So when you remind yourself of these 3 truths, when they become your worldview, then the Awakened Way is living what I call a consciously connected, absolutely divinely guided, moment by moment life. Yeah.
Consciously connected. Beautiful. Divinely guided, moment by moment life.
Yeah.
And that's that dance you were speaking to.
Yeah. When I connect with spirit, sometimes I'll say, come now as an invitation, or I'll say, let's dance.
Beautiful. Well, I've received so much from this conversation. I'm sure our listeners have as well. You've really defined some terms. You also make this feel so accessible, which it is.
It is.
And so important.
Yeah. I mean, from rigid Navy officer to now this connection that will never go away and just keeps getting better. If I can do this, anybody can.
Anything else you want to leave us with?
Just that bottom line about love. My definition, since we're talking about terms, is not the human type. Love is lack of separation. And when you get beyond the physical and come to know who you really are, this spacious awareness, we are the light of consciousness itself. We are source and expression. You can't divide the light. So we're all intermingled. We're all connected at our most essential level. That's love.
You speak with such clean authority. I can actually imagine you now in the U.S. Navy. I get it. The commander, right? And now your ability to command, right? Intelligence and spirit.
Oh, but I get that you use the word command, but to me, it's actually to surrender to it. It's no more directing my life. I used to facilitate strategic planning sessions right after I retired, and plan, set goals, have to achieve, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you ask me what my plan is for the next year, it's, well, I have some things on my calendar, but I'm being guided by spirit moment by moment. So I would say that I don't command. I don't command anything except my husband might disagree.
Well, I'm really glad we actually are talking about this, because I also, I just so appreciate the ability of all of us to live in the unknown. Yeah. And when we were talking about the fortune telling or the future, and it stems from that needing to know the future. And what you just painted and shared and actually transmitted is this frequency of, I surrender.
Oh, can I just add to that? I have 3 or 4 really big opportunities that are unfolding for me now. And I was like, the human side is like, I can't wait to find out I wonder what news there is. Why haven't I heard from someone? And I see it and I immediately shift to, isn't that interesting how the human side needs to know? And so you feel the difference in peace. I used to always be in that, gotta know, gotta have it now, have to know the future side. It's always going to still be here because I'm in a body. It's just programmed to be looking for the future. But when you learn to shift and dance and flow, you're actually creating a more beautiful future because it's not filled with fear and anxiety.
I love it. This is a beautiful way to end our conversation, but continue for all of us this frequency that I believe people are feeling right this moment. I'm feeling it in our conversation. This possibility that we are in touch right now and connected to spirit.
You don't have to do anything. It's right here. Do as in a physical sense, but you do make the choice to shift to experience your more spacious self.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, for sharing with such heart, such clarity. This has been really a beautiful conversation.
It's always a pleasure. I love feeling the energy of everybody who's gathering, even though they're not here. That part of the future has already happened. So it's just we're sharing and communing and in community with kindred spirits. I thank you all for that opportunity.
Yes, and there are wonderful opportunities to get to know you and your work more also within the Shift Network as an instructor.
That's true. Ready, just getting started for a new Mastering the Mediumship Mindset course. So it's always something exciting going on.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for us that you're on the planet. You're sharing this message.
Thank you, Joy. It was a delight.
It was really fun. And I want to thank everyone for listening and being a part of this summit. We are so grateful to be alive together and growing in our psychic and intuitive abilities. Thank you, everyone.